Hope you were able to enjoy your lunch, mingle, network, and above all, recharge your energies so that we can continue with our second half of panel sessions, which is going to begin right now. This one is called, well, More Effective Responses to Health and Environmental Emergencies Through Peace Building. Allow me to introduce you to our next set of panelists. We have Wahid Majro, former Minister for Public Health in Afghanistan. We have Ilhaj Si, former Secretary General IFRC. We have Michaela Serafini from ICRC. And we have Dominic Bourgeon from FAO Liaison Office at UN Geneva. Of course, we couldn't have this discussion without our moderator, René Larivière from Interpeace. Now, René, as a moderator, your job will be, of course, crucial to liven up this conversation, as well as being a timekeeper so that we make sure we end up at exactly 3 p.m. so we can continue with our next session. Enjoy.
Great, thank you, Ariane, and thank you for introducing the panel as well. Welcome, everyone, and welcome to the participants online. First, a brief word of thank you to the Geneva Health Forum as well for allowing this discussion to take place. I know it's a bit of an unusual discussion to be talking about peace, health, conflict, humanitarian affairs, all in one conversation, but it's also very timely as well. So before we get started with our speakers, let me frame the conversation for you. As a peace builder, but also as a former environmental expert, I've seen the growing convergence over the years of how climate change, how climate emergencies and conflict are very much widely discussed and observed also in different countries. We have, however, very limited understanding of the intersection between health, between peace, and between conflict. So today, what we'd like to do with you during our 1 hour conversation is very much explore how conflict intersects with climate change issues, but also health emergencies. And we want to share maybe some lessons learned and how we can be better prepared for tackling these challenges in the coming future. We just have to look at the 2014 Ebola outbreak in West Africa or the 2018 Ebola outbreak in DRC to illustrate how the humanitarian sector, but also how the environment and also the peace-building community were all of a sudden operating under the same area. And we saw that this is no longer about whose space this is. This is very much about converging spaces, also improving the way that we work and collaborate with one another. So perhaps maybe as one point that's very important for the audience here today, because this is the Geneva Health Forum after all, maybe let me assure you that this is not about changing the work or the core business of the health workers, nor is it about changing the core mandate of humanitarian action. It's far from that. This is really about the long-term footprint that health interventions can have, whether it was planned that way or not, on conflict dynamics in different countries. So there's tons of experiences and examples that I could cite as well. At Interpeace, we call this being peace responsive, which is really about thinking a little bit more deliberately on how, if you have an intervention or a plan or a project that's development focused, like building a road, or in the humanitarian sector or health sector about animal vaccination, it's thinking of how you can actually make a positive contribution to peace and maybe not add to the tensions in fragile settings. So this is what the conversation is about today. If you're not convinced, let me just give you a small indicator about the urgency of this conversation or the need to have this conversation today. 50% of the countries that are most at risk of climate change or climate emergencies are located in political or peacekeeping missions. So that is very telling in regard to the timeliness of this conversation. But enough about the setting of this conversation. Let me turn to our speakers. And before we go into a discussion about institutions or system, we have a unique opportunity to hear firsthand experience of how these various sectors intersect in a given time, especially in a conflict setting. And so I'd like to turn to Minister Machereau to help set the stage on how you've lived, how you saw, how you experienced the impact of conflict on the health system or on environmental degradation in Afghanistan. So over to you, Minister.
I thank you. I will present you our experience, our practical memories in the context of a story rather than the fancy words from public health books and the development approaches that we have practiced at least during 2 decades in a context like Afghanistan. I'm sure it is relevant to other parts of the world, which unfortunately these days we have a lot of similarities. Ukraine could be an example. Just in short, unfortunately, conflict is a bad thing. It affects, it has negative impacts on different aspects of our life and a multidimensional impact when it comes to the health sector and health of communities. If you look at that from a public health expert, from a technical perspective, the indicators are badly affected, unfortunately, when it comes to maternal mortality, to child mortality, to people's access to health services as their basic right, to the capacity of the system to deliver services and meet the needs, the damage it poses to the epidemiological transition and demographic transition to society, the NCD, the immunization programs, different aspects of the continuum of care is unfortunately badly affected. On the other side, when you look, it poses the health sector to an assessment by the society and by politicians. In a context like Afghanistan, which I practically felt it, there are times in the peak of conflict where the health sector, the heroes of the health sector, health personnel, remains the only signs of legitimacy of the government, remains the only points of service delivery to those communities that are direly in need of support. And at that point, it is the community, the media, the international partners, and the politicians who all focus their eyes and their lenses at the health sector. It exposes you to a very, very difficult and critical assessment. It raises the expectation. I remember the days before the fall of regime in Afghanistan, where the fight was, the unprecedented fight was going on in 34 provinces of Afghanistan simultaneously. And the white-gone heroes of Afghan health sector, as an example, which is replicated in other parts of the world as well, were the only service providers at midnights in the middle of the battlefields, and the resiliency of the health system, which was a result of a joint collaboration of the Afghans and its international partners, could sustain service delivery in 97.5%, 4% of health facilities in those hard days and nights. That not only just posed a threat, but an opportunity for the healthcare personnel in the sector to fulfill the needs of a society. That is one part. On the other side, the burden, the expectation, which the conflict puts on the shoulder of the health sector is completely incomparable with the resources provided to the health sector. Unfortunately, when it comes to the government, to politicians, to Ministry of Finance, and to our international donors, the focus is only on the outputs. And this is what they measure. They never hear the real voices in the needs of healthcare personnel, their thoughts, their requirements, and their drive, their enthusiasm to fulfill the needs of people whom are looking at them as the angels of to rescue them from the disaster they've been facing with. Using this platform, I first applaud and appreciate the bravery of healthcare personnel in my country, in Ukraine, and in different parts of this globe. They are the real heroes of today. They are the real angels who rescue lives. And I call on decision makers at the global level to listen to this sector, to ensure you provide the means for the means you expect from them. The health sector across the globe, and in my context, proved it is resiliency, it is passion, it is drive, and it is capacity to sustain and maintain service delivery in the face of conflict, but it needs further attention. And it has proven, and there are examples, practical examples, that if we want to put an end to conflict, to ensure social engagement, social peace, instead of political peace, the health sector in the health system, in health personnel, is the best entry point. It does not only heal the physical ulcers, injuries, but it connects people's hearts. It connects values. It exemplifies servant leadership. It provides people with sincere service, irrespective of which tribe, which village, which party he or she comes from. There are examples where we have enemies coming to our health facilities. But my order, my message to my personnel, in the practice that the healthcare personnel of Afghan system as part of the global health system exemplified, is the neutrality, impartiality is not only our motto, but what we stick to when we practice in the emergency and operating rooms. This is the value we stand by. This is what medical and health systems mean. In these systems, which has proven it is resiliency toward conflict, has proven it is usefulness in bridging peace, in helping peace initiatives to cultivate the values that political leaders have been talking about it for decades, but have failed to practice it into action. Our healthcare system personnel across the globe has exemplified it. Let these leaders, unknown, unrecognized leaders, to lead the peace process as well. They're able to connect with people's hearts. They're able to respect people, to help people without any expectation from them. This is what we have experienced in Afghanistan, and I'm sure that colleagues here and those just watching this program has several examples across the globe just right now where nurses, midwives, surgeons, physicians are providing services in a way that results in enduring peace, not the political peace where the political leaders talk about it, and my Afghanistan of today is a victim of that. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for these vivid remarks. I know I was asking you the impossible, trying to summarize your lived experience in a few minutes, but I think you've painted a very vivid picture of the heroic efforts of the medical sector, and also the resilience of the health system, but also at the same time the extreme fragility that it could have had it not been resilient enough to sustain the deployment of services to the Afghan population. So with that, maybe I can turn to Minister Majro to tell us a little bit again about your experience in Afghanistan and the role of the international community in relation to the national government and the health systems as well. What should we be doing differently after, for example, the example of Ukraine that I just mentioned, or your own experience, of course?
Thank you. Afghanistan has been a unique example from different perspectives, but when it comes, it is engagement with donors. We have two interesting phases. First, started in 2001, in which there was a collaboration of not only focusing on emergency and development, but establishing a political institution in the government. And the second, which starts from the August 15th, where the donor community is stuck in a corner where they don't have any option but to work with a de facto structure there on the ground just for the sake of humanity and ensuring they get the chance to save lives on the ground. But when we look back to 20 years ago, the way the international community and the donors interacted, and then the example we have post-August 15th, I have two specific words to share. First, I would like to thank and appreciate all our international partners and donors, specifically those working in the health sector, and more specifically, their staff members as individuals. Their bravery, their commitment, and the drive to help Afghans is highly appreciated. On the other side, the message I have for the institutions is that there is a long way for them and for us to learn and to practice what we talk about in events, in meetings, and in press conferences. I know it is a strange statement because those working in fancy buildings in big cities, in beautiful offices, they don't expect someone coming from a third world country telling them that my practical experience, which have grown with you for 2 decades, at different phases of emergency, stabilization, and development, and then again post-August 15th, which I don't know what to name, and I'm a bit surprised that the new health project is, again after 20 years, called the Health Emergency Response, and I'm to be honest, I'm a bit confused about it. To tell them that no, the practical footprint you put in Afghanistan tells us and you that there is a great amount of data provided as lesson learned that teaches us. If we believe in efficiency, if we believe in coordination, if we believe in the host nation-led initiatives, we have to modify our approach. What I recommend, the message I share with the international donors is that the time you enter a geography, please start with the end in mind. Please think of the day you will transit the responsibility to the poor government, the poor institution, the poor nation that will have to take on the initiative. The cost, which they will not be able to bear it. The technical capacity that it will not have been developed there in the institutions. And the connectedness. The reason I focus on this one, in the way in the emergency phase, the government institutions are being replaced by donors in technical agencies is painful. We're talking about peace. In the fundamental aspects of a peace process is enriching and supporting the social contract. And I call on experts, do we have a more determinant and effective factor in strengthening the trust in the community, the social contract, than health? So when you replace the health institution, when you question the stewardship and leadership role, what value have we left in that opportunity? We have not added anything. In Afghanistan context, it is proven the successes we have, I always repeat, it is a result of a joint collaboration with our donors, in which I appreciate it. We have failures, but we have great achievements as well. During the worst days of conflict, the health sector institutions and personnel was the only entry point to infiltrate to those communities which were inaccessible for decades. At the days of the regime, when the politicians left the people, when the politicians left the country, this was the health system, given it is role in social contract, given it is trust in the society, it is legitimacy, it is connectedness to society, who remained with people, who assured people, which there is still people who will take care of them. We have to realize this aspects of the health sector. We have to learn from the footprint we have left in countries like Afghanistan and today in Ukraine. Why are you repeating things in every part of the geography? Why should we pay after and after for the failures we make? I believe that the resources are limited, the time is limited, and life's value. And this is the best opportunity to join forces, to avoid from single-mindedness of only technical approach to health. This is the time to engage leadership and peace efforts along with health initiatives. The critique I have always had in our meetings with WHO, that health leaders, health sector leaders, are not equipped with the means to enable them to play the potential role they can have in peace-building processes in their country and in their contexts. I'm sure that the events of this nature can facilitate, can open minds and eyes on the aspect which is unread, the potential which is untapped during last years or decades. The last but not the least, I believe that if we do not look back at the experiences we have left in those countries like Afghanistan, the next generation will be a lost generation, and we as public health experts will be blamed for the failures we're making today, and those who are experts or actives in health and peace sector and peace initiatives, they will not be spared. This is the time to join forces, to make sure that we stick to the values and dig into the opportunities we have to synergize our efforts and initiatives. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister.